he will speak on his research, which is very interesting, given that he stays in the Punes in the United States, but he's in the thick of things in India. But I want to say a few words, especially because he holds significance to me at least. He is my PhD cohort from SUNY at Buffalo. Not equivalent, but I think he is a couple of years senior to me. But we spent a good three and a half years together, sitting in windowless PhD student offices in Buffalo in the winter. And Buffalo used to be hard. There were just 2 seasons in Buffalo: winter and the 4th of July. That's what we used to call it, right? 4th of July was the only summer day available, and that happened to be America's Independence Day as well. Other than that, all the rest of the year was winter in Buffalo. So gloomy Buffalo and windowless offices, that's what our experience was. So it's great to have Naresh back. I call him Naresh Bhai. He went to Singapore after graduation and then moved back to the US. Pity that from Singapore he didn't hop over to India but went back to the US. But nevertheless, I think he keeps in close touch with India and does a lot of research on India. So we'll be happy to hear you. Naresh, all yours. And
good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me and being here. And we'll spend some time talking about this topic. Yeah, so and it came actually my interest was earlier on the topic of Cronyism, and that again it came from actually Singapore when I was working there. There was one example, that in terms of faculty promotions, like assistant to associate or associate to full. So there was one individual faculty who was doing actually great in research, great in teaching. So he could be promoted. He should be promoted on basis of one of the things, not both of them. But he won't get promoted, and then there were others like not good but still get promoted, and we are all familiar with those kind of instances, like where merit doesn't count, and there are these other factors, and but that example, how can you ignore merit that bluntly? So my interest started from there, and then I started finding very in terms of systematic things people were doing in biasing decisions and so on. And there was actually when there were in 94, Singapore economy was booming, and they were actually hiring this foreign faculty, and there was that flux of many Indians, like who were doing their PhDs in US, and US at that time for PhDs was not as good, but Singapore, they were attracting a lot of faculty. And what happened, there was one Chinese doctoral student doing in management information systems, his PhD. So that individual, like when we were there, he got his PhD in 2 years, then he became assistant professor, and in 2 years he became associate professor. In another 2 years he became actually head of that management information system department. So, and then I was wondering what is going on, and then actually I kind of developed a theory about Singapore, what is that kind of hierarchy, like how they make these decisions. And my conclusion was that if you are Chinese and if you are Christian, you are on top of the thing. Like, so it doesn't matter where you are from, China. So there were these kind of factors, very, very systematic, influencing all those kind of decisions. So, and that is when, and then I really started looking at cultural things, like what gives rise to these kind of things. And when I was doing that project, a lot of people actually, because Singapore is still controlled society, that people were advising, are you crazy? Why are you talking about these things? So, but I still kind of felt passion, and I wanted to do. If it is an important idea, then why should we be scared? And I went for it, and then it was received very well, and I had quite a few publications in good top journals out of Cronyism. And then that idea of Cronyism, it fitted so nicely into this crony capitalism. Because in India we talk about corruption. But to me, like, corruption is more random acts, bribes, and that kind of a thing. But cronism to me is the real thing in India, because these acts happen very systematically. Like, you build relations and then you do that kind of rigged system or fixed system, the way we cricket, we were doing those fixed things. So that those are the kind of things, relation based systematic aspects, not this random acts of corruption. That is more important and more significant in affecting outcomes. So that is the general kind of background how I became interested in this topic. Yeah. And then, yeah, uh, with other colleagues, we were able to cover various aspects of crony capitalism, and this was the book published like last year. So, and I will take, like, all those things can't be covered, so I will be taking some ideas from there. So, and here, like, briefly, kind of definition, and that is, again, very natural tendency, especially in cultures like ours, and I will examine that, why our culture, we do that more than others. And, we will always give preference to old friends, associates, relatives, we want to help them in any way possible. So, but when we ignore qualifications, merit, and reward people who are less deserving, that is what basic idea of cronism. So, and crony capitalism is basically in a system in which profitability of business depends on political connections. So, and or a rigged or fixed system. So, and here the government is doing that for the benefit of the cronies of the government officials, like those who are in good books. With the government officials, they do very well. So, and here again, that power favors, all those things. Like, it is very intricate, system, personal contact, favoritism, and very vibrant. Like, people do it very seriously. So, and here, that is the thing, that in this system, lobbying and political skills are needed, and you spend more energy on those things. And as a result, what happens is, if we have a lot of this crony capitalism in the system, what will happen? Like, real entrepreneurs, they may not have political skills, connections. So, on the other hand, like, there will be these politicians, they connection based, they may have poor ideas, poor products, but they have government connection, so they will sell their service or product easily. As a result, like if we will have a lot of crony capitalism, we will end up with very poor products or expensive products. So, so that and here I would like to talk about 4 cultural dimensions that may have kind of connection with this cronism or crony capitalism, like individualism, collectivism, verticalness, horizontalness, and these 2 are ascription-achievement. I will talk about that. And is anyone familiar with these? Like, at least first 2, there may be like Hofstede's work, that individualism, collectivism, it is very popular dimension. And verticalness, horizontal is same as power distance. You might have heard power distance as well. So these other 2 are lesser known, but they have a powerful influence as well. So. And these cultural dimensions, we start appreciating them more when we go to a different culture. For example, now here in India, if I explain individualism, no matter how we explain, people will not fully appreciate what individualism is. Because we are so collectivist, we can't imagine, for example, in America, individualistic culture, they expect like you are selfish. Because individualistic culture, self-interest is the focus. Like you should take care of yourself. That is the first idea. Like that, if you don't take care of yourself, who else will? Individualistic culture. So but in collectivist culture like India, where we emphasize family, groups, society, individual sacrifice for the larger system. So that, but I will talk about more about those properties to fully understand the, what the, how they might influence our attitudes and behaviors. So, and for example, individualistic culture, self-interest or personal goals, those come first. But in collectivist culture, like for example, family, parents, like they will sacrifice for the child will then take care of their parents. And so, and brothers, sisters, other relatives, so we are so embedded in the group thing, and actually most societies are collective. 70-80% or even more. It should be actually more than 80% of the humankind. They are collectivist. So, and here, like if for in terms of individualist, the task comes first. Relationships come second. But in collectivists, we know that a relationship will come first. Task achievements and task consideration, accomplishment, they come second. And everyone grows up to look after himself or herself in individualistic culture, and children learn to think in terms of I, so, and very contractual relationships, and task prevails over relationship, and really that struggle goes for most of us when we go to like US, and there is that even cultural shock that sometimes you have to do things opposite of what you think is right to get it right in other culture. So because that works on opposite assumptions. So. And yeah, collectivist culture really like more family relations, and if we actually look at the complexity of our culture in terms of social relations, if we look at different relatives, like Mosa or Fufaji or Dadaji, Nanaji, every role is so kind of defined concretely, like you name the relation and you know what is expected of that individual. So it is, again, because of that collective culture, like we have kind of developed really complex relationships. So, and then those things really, determine our behavior. And to me, even today, that is what I believe. If Indian society is functioning, it is not because of laws or rules, because we don't follow laws and rules, which I will talk later. It is working because of actually social things like social mechanisms.
So is cronyism the new negative connotation of collectivism?
Yeah, probably like we will get that answer to some extent. That collectivism then, because relationships are so important, then it is likely you will see this, although there are these two types of cronism also. We call like instrumental and relational. And like, for example, US, cronism is of a different type, like it is more favors. Here, like more relations, loyalty. So there is a subtle difference, and probably I will talk about that also. And I will answer that question in a little while. So. Yeah, here, that harmony and relationships, trust, those are the kinds of things. And sacrifice, like individual sacrifice for the society. So, for example, in the morning I was, giving talk, and then what should we do in terms of research and so on, and everybody was talking about society, like, as a society we should do this and that, and then I like, in a US classroom we will not hear that kind of thought like society, what we have to do as a society. You may hear that word once in 2-3 years, because we are there, they are not focused on those societal as such, like individual level, that remains the focus. So this, like that, you can call it power distance or verticalness or horizontal in terms of these power differentials from senior, junior, like teacher, student, or father, mother, and kids, and even like eldest brother, youngest. There are these hierarchical relations, like so that power differences between individuals, more they are, the more vertical culture that is, and lesser the difference is, then that is a horizontal culture. So, and yeah, there are, and in horizontal cultures, like people really want to be treated equally, whereas vertical cultures, like over these things get so ingrained, we accept even those power differentials, like so. And that is the one example I find, like in school when we write that application to headmaster, where do we end that? Like, yours obediently. No, and that being obedient is a very good trait in our culture. But like in US setting, they hate, like, why should any be obedient? You know, like, and then, yeah, in terms of centralization of power and subordinates also, they expect to be told what to do. No, so their greater salary differential, top and bottom, and so on. So, and here in vertical culture, uh, uh, this is the ideal boss. Like the way, for example, we even vote for in elections, we are looking for somebody who is strong, but who is good, like who will do the good things. So that is the kind of basic culture and value. We want strong leaders, authoritative leaders, but who are benevolent, who think good, can do good things for the society. So, and uh, and then powerful people try to look as impressive as possible. And so we know, like, when a minister goes, you have this long line, motorcade, so more larger the motorcade, the more important you are, so. And horizontal cultures, really, parents and children, like, they really are treated equally, and no centralization of power, and subordinates also, like, you cannot just give them instruction. They want to be consulted. And here, a good boss is resourceful democrat. So you have to act democratically, not autocratically, in a horizontal culture. And but anyone, like, can you give example of horizontal culture? Okay. All Western world or some Western world, or there also will be differences? Okay. Actually, they are also vertical. Actually, like US is vertical, UK is vertical. Yeah, yes, Scandinavian countries, Australia, New Zealand, they are truly, like, horizontal cultures. Like, there you will find actually difference between men, women also. Gender differences are also less, like. So, uh, uh, yeah, and there are only few horizontal cultures really. Although US, for example, like, it is less vertical than ours. Like, for example, Malaysia is one of the highest on that verticalness. Pakistan is very high. So wherever you will have these vertical cultures, like, you will find people are suppressed, like, they don't talk freely and so on. So, and here is that now Arindam's question. Here, when you combine these two dimensions, like, we get these four variations of cultures: vertical individualism, vertical collectivism, horizontal individualism, and horizontal collectivism. So here, anyone, like, example of vertical individualistic culture? Yeah. Will that be vertical individualistic culture? It is it is vertical collectivist culture. So it is vertical definitely, but like all Asian cultures are collectivist. So, and North Korea, I don't know where it will fit. Like it is exception. Like one guy, like I don't know how will you define that society. It may not fit anywhere. So, no, yeah. Yeah, Korea and China, like all most societies, again 70-80% are vertical collectivists. You go to Africa, you go to Latin America, except Western world, no, all are like vertical. Traditional societies, like developing or less developed, they are all like in that vertical collectivism. Okay? So, vertical individual, like other than Scandinavian countries, all Western countries, they are vertical individualist. So, and horizontal individualism is actually Scandinavian countries. For example, Denmark, no, and Sweden, Norway, no. And horizontal collectivism, actually, we don't find much. Huh? Yeah, Israel and then even New Zealand probably are the closest there, horizontal collectivism. So maybe there is a reason, like if you are collectivist, you can't be horizontal. Or commune. Yeah, kibbutz. Yeah. So that is the only rare example we find. Israel, those are the, and New Zealand also, it may fall between horizontal individualism, collectivism, something like that. So, but no, even this verticalness, as I was saying, like some are far more vertical, some are less vertical. So, and here that is the thing that whenever you will see verticalness, we find that it will start creating again this dynamic of Cronyism. And horizontalness, it acts as a deterrent to chronistic behavior. So, vertical individualist and vertical collectivist, you will find chronism in both, but it is of different type. Individualist, it is more, I call it instrumental. For example, in America, it is not out of emotion, people are favoring each other. It is you give me something, I will give you something, like, and after that transaction, then like loyalty or relation, those kind of things. So, but in vertical collectivism, the trust and relations, those things come into play. So that Cronyism is also a little more different type there. So, but highest will be like vertical collectivism. If we look at Amnesty International, their ranking of countries, it falls so neatly along these dimensions. So, vertical collectivism, most of those top 10, they will be all vertical collectivist. And top 10 clean countries, like most of them will be horizontal individual. Yeah. Somehow there is like inherent contradiction. Like if you are horizontal, you can't be collectivist.
Because the original Karl Marx's theory
Uh-huh.
of socialism, which is what horizontal collectivism, which is what was practiced.
Uh-huh. So it is.
That kind of cronyism is good.
Uh-huh.
And theoretically, that could be good, right?
No, there will not be, when there is horizontalness, you will see much less chronism.
But you have that collectivism along with that, which is that sort of
Focus will be on relationship, and here that is the argument I am making, and there is again evidence, if you look at Amnesty International at least, that individualism, collectivism as such don't determine amount of chronism. This verticalness creates that, and individualistic collectivist may be same amount of chronism but different kind. No, so that you are not convinced. Okay. Yeah, that to me that is the thing. Create a dynamic. Verticalness creates that chronistic dynamic, because we start competing. Verticalness, because status matters. You need to move up. So that creates that competition or chronistic dynamic.
But you would agree that collectivism has to do with that fabric that we call networks.
Relation. Trust relation, yeah. And social.
Whether the network is like top down or whether it is flat is what horizontal or vertical talks about. But the collectivism or individualism drive, whether it is a network or a process driven society. Or process in the sense that something which is more a personal society versus personal relationship with society. Now, what is horizontal and vertical is about what is the contour of a network, whether it is top down or whether it is flat. Yes?
And then this is another kind of really relevant dimension, Indian context, that universalistic societies, reliance on formal rules and policies, and that will be applied to everybody, like there is no exception. So, and here, like Austria, Germany, Switzerland, USA, some of the examples in universalism. So they will follow the rule, like, and some are such, for example, if there is red light and there is no traffic coming, you are at 2 a.m. So these countries actually, even then they will follow the rule, like, there is no other car or anything, even miles, still you will follow the rule, like, because that is so important. And if you look at UK also, they are very universalistic culture, set these rules, and then everybody will follow. And particularism is rules applied flexibly, and relationship take precedence over formal rules. So we break rules, like if our friend is in need, we will break all the rules, right? So that is the, and here, like, China, India, Venezuela, Indonesia, Korea, and in this actually particularism, South Korea, they come on top, like, so. And then India high on particularism, and that again seems to make to me very clear sense that if you look at 1947, our administrative system was quite fair, like, rules were followed because it was established by Britishers, and administrators, they will follow the rules really. But over time, because our culture is particularistic, so over time, because we don't emphasize rules, they have become less and less important, and as a result, to me, like, all our system has deteriorated actually, and that is the thing I say actually, that we like more Bihar model. All India is going in that direction, like where we don't follow rules. So, and that may be thing to do with our culture, like very particularistic culture. So, And that also is the issue, like new laws or poor enforcement of existing laws, because we are averse to creating universal rules. So, and then is this dimension, ascription achievement, how we accord respect and status in the society. So, in achievement-oriented society, respect and status based on individual's achievement, but in ascription, it is more, no, in terms of, for example, age. Like if you are old, then we will want to give more respect. Then, like birth, class, caste, those are the things. Gender, and education, and so there are these, kind of not related to how like meritorious or achieving you are, but how, in terms of, for example, even what family you come from, and those kind of things. Yeah.
Sir, it's just a thought that I had as you were. Cronyism is, I mean, it gains salience because there is this notion of meritocracy or merit, right? So if somebody is gets benefits not on the basis of merit but some other means, then that becomes an issue. So therefore we are talking about cronyism and we are problematizing it. Now this meritocracy or I mean in some sense objective evaluation, it comes from the Enlightenment tradition and very much from the industrial age, the idea itself. Whatever I mean primordial forms of organization Indians or any other collectivist society may have had, I think we will find examples of what today we are calling cronyism. Even there, like some minister's son becomes, he automatically by inheritance gets. So that was there, but it was not called cronyism there. We are saying that it is, collectivist. But now, because modern day organization operates on the logic which is deriving from the Enlightenment tradition and the industrial age and all these things. So then we are trying to actually, so if we try and see this particular society or organizations in this society in that light, then do you think that it leads us to the most accurate assessment, or there is some other form of categorization can be used?
Yeah, that I don't know if you have heard Trump and who actually wrote about these two dimensions, like universalism, particularism, and so and that is, for example, Chinese, and Americans, and they had some nice words for Americans, like when they work with them, like in terms of these contracts and things like that. And that Japan and China, for example, first you have to establish friendship and loyalty before you can have any contracts, like, thinking in those terms. So you have to build trust. But in West, simply like, they are looking for each other's interest. Like, does it work for you? Does it work for me? Both parties, yeah, it works for benefit of both, and let us do it. So that is the, and that again, like, one thing is in universalistic society, they say, like I go to US and say if I am caught, like, I'm say going through the red light, and if there is a friend there, by chance if I know, then in India we will expect that, like as a friend, let it go. But there, and if that friend doesn't help, then we will say, what kind of a friend this individual is. So Yeah, that different, and that is the thing which we keep finding. For example, Americans, they keep advising other countries, like you are doing corruption. But there is corruption, for example, there is tremendous lobbying in the US. And they call it like, no, because this is self-interest and, no, yeah, lobbying, you should fight for your interests. They don't call it corruption. So those kind of things are acceptable there, but if you do more relation-based kind of things, they will say, no, this is corruption. So that is clearly subjective, like that things that look as we think in India are corrupt, they may not see it like that, or like in America, what we don't like or corrupt things, they will say, no, this is okay. So it becomes subjective, yeah, in that sense.
Which is why when Narendra sir was saying social network, so that resonates more with the way they would like to call it. But here, I think in our collectivist kind of societies, it's not social network happens as an outcome, but the identity of the community and that relationship, I think that holds an importance of its own. It's not just as a way of transaction.
Yeah. And exactly the same point that we are doing this relationship for the sake of relationship. Not necessarily we want something out of that, like some favors. But in West, like it is basically your networking or friendship is like, when you need, you will get something, like, So that is what we say, like that is corruption to us, like, but for them, that is social networking, and that is what you should be doing, like so. And clearly, there are those clear behaviors which are acceptable here are not acceptable there, and some acceptable there. We won't like them. So it is cultural specific, and same thing I was saying. That vertical individualism, there is a lot of cronism there, lot of corruption, but it is of a different nature. That social networking type. But in collectivist culture, it is more that affection, relation, trust, and the kind, I don't know if you have heard, Guangxi in China. Because in China, that is actually, they don't follow any rules and laws also. But that whole society is held together by that social mechanisms, Guangxi. The way I was saying, like in India, India is not run by laws as much as, again, basically social expectations, social rules, behaviors. Yeah, so and exactly like that is the point there. And here, this is the then kind of idea that individualism, collectivism, so that also create dynamic, then verticalness, horizontalness, and all these four will lead to, like, if you are more collectivist, more vertical, more particular, and more ascription oriented, then these things will happen. So, no, because here I have not indicated positive, negative signs, but meaning here is high collectivism, high verticalness, high particularism, and high ascription. They will cause more Cronyism. And this we see, like inequality of influence, disregard, subversion of law, and poor enforcement of laws. And in India, again, we find that this low-level corruption, if you look at extent of that transaction total amount, it is not much, but it is more frustrating. Whereas that higher level, these politicians and businessmen and the way they are, or even administrators, the way they are doing favors, amount of those corrupt transactions are much higher level, but that doesn't bother us as much. So, but that to me, like, no, we should look at both of that, like, because both hurt the system. Because we are more frustrated only that lower level corruption, but most people are not aware that very systematic, like Tata, Birla, and all these, now the Ambanis, and the way they prospered. So that is the, and then in addition to these four dimensions, I believe there are these three other contextual factors which creates the Indian brand of crony capitalism, like Indian history, political culture, and economic philosophy. And I kind of believe like these Mughal and British rules, really, they ruled our society for a long time. And these were outsiders, and they wanted to suppress local, and as a result, like over time, because local people who will do well, who will show more loyalty to these outsiders. So I kind of believe, as a result, we develop this mentality, like, and this chapalusi, like Indian DNA, like, so. So that is one idea, and then again, like Congress ruled for a long time, like 47 to so it had a lot of positive, negative impact, the way our economic system or entire society. So, but in terms of like to me, this was one hallmark of Congress, that sycophantic political culture. And here, I don't know if you might be too young at that time, like when Devkant Barua, he was external foreign minister, like he declared Indira is India and India is Indira, and then Gyani Jail Singh. If madam asked me to sweep the floor, I would gladly do so. Like so much, loyalty, unquestioned loyalty. So, and then Indian economic philosophy, we had this license Raj or socialist model. So, a lot of these Indian businessmen, like more than really developing good product or service, idea was like in Delhi you get a license, and then you don't let other people get into your market, like that was the real model, like managing your business via Delhi. So there was that created a lot of those problems. So, and I kind of believe that Indian economic philosophy, like we know there are these two models, like socialism and capitalism. And socialism, there is a positive side, there is negative side. Capitalism also, there is positive side and negative side. So if you look at socialism, what is the positive side? You will see more equality. But what is the downside? It is inefficient system, because there is no incentive and so on. So, and in capitalism, what is the upside? Capitalism is very brute, very efficient system, like, but downside is, if you don't control it, it can become very exploitative. So, ideally, if you combine two systems, what you want to do? You want to fuse positive elements. But in India, unwittingly, I think we ended up fusing the negative elements of both. Like so we took inefficiency from socialism and greed from capitalism, and that is how, like, our Indian economic system looks like to me. Because there is another comparison I find is, for example, US healthcare system and Indian economic system, to me, they are so strikingly similar that both are very wasteful and very, like, a lot of greed and a lot of inefficiency. So, yeah. And then even this, like, on economic philosophy, Shekhar Gupta, I don't know if you, and that is one quick comment, like in terms of, we don't have intellectuals in India for some reason, like, why is that? I don't know. But, for example, even in economics, like, we are having Shekhar Gupta and Tavleen Singh, they are writing articles on this economic philosophy more than any economist or anybody doing that. So that was, and Shekhar Gupta actually wrote quite a few on that, doctrine of power Cronyism. So, and then we are also seeing this contrast, Amartya Sen and Jagdish Bhagwati. So, and crony socialism versus crony capitalism. So, and that, like, if we have socialist system, then we will have a cronyism of different kind. So, and capitalism of it is a different kind. So, but on the whole, like, crony capitalism is better than crony socialism, if you have to pick out of those two systems. So, but earlier we had crony socialism, which was like really inefficient system. And so, and probably that may be the last one. Yeah, yeah. Here, if so, that is the overall kind of dynamic for what we see in India, Indian brand of crony capitalism.
So, as you see, if we see how the Mughals even entered India, it was again due to somebody who was disloyal and they allowed them in. That's how Indians have always been like that. Is there, considering it's there in our cultural fabric, it's there in our history, is there a way that in India can convert it to, let's say, in terms of these politics, change into, let's say, Singapore, where there is at least less cronyism in terms of bureaucratic efficiencies?
Because I was in Singapore, and there actually, if you look at crony capitalism, is almost 100% there. So, but and there we start looking at, like, for example, even if you look at South Korea or even Japan, like, there is a lot of crony capitalism, but still, like, it is not as harmful as we see, like, in Indian context. So, yeah, but that question is very good, and to me, these things, like, I believe culture is such a thing, like, it doesn't change, although a lot of international management scholars, they start saying, like, everything is converging and so on. To me, these are very hard things, like, and I'm not sure if you can change it and do something. It has to, like, randomly figure it out, like, those experiments and trials, like, no, we are choosing one party, they don't do well, we choose other party, and there are, we are keeping trying, like, in terms of our leadership. And like I say, like, our democracy is good, like, we are given chances to so many people, but whoever comes there, they don't deliver. So that is the but someday maybe, like, we maybe end up with some right kind of. So, but that will be by luck, I believe. Like so, but this understanding overall, yeah, may help. Like because prescription usually will be that, no, that you want to, understand those bad elements of your culture. You want to somehow, neutralize and accentuate your, positive things in your society. So, and those were like actually there were some. Let me see. Yeah, actually here, yeah, these are the things which I thought like prescription based on that, like that building great institutions. So. There is no other way, like although as I said, like if we are collectivist, we just don't like institution, we don't like laws, rules. But still, like for example, to me Britain, why they could rule the entire world, it was because of institutions. And for example, USA, if they are doing good, it is because of, again, they have great institutions. So there is really no other way, like that as a society we have to build institutions, but still that meet our requirements, like so, and then this like ethical universalism. Teaching ethics in schools and so on. So new generation at least we can help. So and then especially when we compare our society and like in US in terms of voluntarism and the civic duties and civic awareness, there is just huge difference. So our society, we have to create that like civic duty, and any community, like if you have some leaders who can, take leadership and start creating that, you can make a lot of difference in your own community, like. But somehow, and I think in the past we had a lot of that social institutions but probably we have lost the way, like we don't have our institutions, we don't have new institutions, so probably that is the kind of situation we have. And then education is the key, and then the more government intervention, you will see greater Cronyism. So you want to really like, have as less influence from politics into economics as possible, and transparency, then this free speech and vibrant free press. Like these are the things if we do, like we can make ours a great society. So
So have you thought of heterogeneity of a society as one of the moderators in the relationship?
yeah, that is the like Indian society is like very complex. I can't imagine we can find a more complex society, and yet that again uniform society will have their issues as well. I don't know. That is a tough question. Like so. Yeah, but India is a real big and complex. So for anybody, it's a real challenge. Like, but then you can say, then why we are talking about it if we can't do anything? So, but still, like education, awareness, and those will like gradually we can make our society better. So.
But sir, if profits are with certain people, say because of crony capitalism, they can very well suppress things from happening. Right?
Yeah, and that is the like, because if you don't have institutions, then really there are these players who will suppress everybody else.
For example, let's take the last point, vibrant free press. So the Josie Joseph book that came out last year, Feast of Vultures. Jet Airways has put 1,000 crore suit on the journalist. So no journalist further in the future would publish anything against corporates again.
And that is the argument, like in the book, like we are also making, like that in terms of these, institutions, wherever you will see crony capitalism, they will work very hard against any law, rule, creating these institutions. They don't like institutions, fair institutions. So, and that actually now, actually I am seeing in USA, that society is crumbling because of crony capitalism, because this lobbying has become so systematic in that system that very simple things which everybody understands that a society needs, but it goes against the interest of powerful people, you can't do anything. So it is like US like is to me as crony capitalistic as India. It's
Sir, even if some of these solutions don't go against the benefit of the powerful people, do you think we can implement some of them? For example, separation of politics and economics. Even if powerful people support separation of politics and economics, can we as masses and citizens keep out policy and governance and regulation, because they are the dimensions that come in between politics and economics. So if there is no regulation of say economics by politics or otherwise, policy is one. So policies are kind of bridge between politics and economics. So where do those things come?
yeah, like it is answer to that is awakened citizenry. Like if we can have that, like civic and people take charge, and for example, in India we have so many bright people. Why the hell they don't come together and start doing things like which? But all of us, we are sitting and watch cricket or something and relax. But like if you want to make our society great, at least those who are educated, why they don't come together? Let's do something. Let's stand against these people.
So sir, what I'm hearing is you're saying horizontal collectivism is going to work or not? What are these? Yeah. Because you said horizontal and collectivism are contradictories in a sense. But what you're saying as a solution is also horizontal collectivism. That we, in one sense, need trust in relationships, but we also need horizontal.
No, there I was more describing those relationships that happen and so on. And real underlying dynamic why we have the kind of chronic behavior that we see in India. But for any crony behavior, solution to that will be like establishing good system. But if there is corrupt people are in charge, how can you have a fair system? For that, if you can have more educated individuals, if they take stand up and start, educating people and enlightening people, then politicians they will have to listen then. But if nobody, those more educated people, they are afraid or they don't want to do anything, then society will suffer. And to me that last slide is actually it captures my sense of you can call it solutions or whatever. So that and the first thing our Indians are doing that, we are changing governments so often, and it has helped even now politicians relatively more responsible, you have to respond to the needs of masses. So but then this is the also I find that people deserve the government they get. Like so, it is that our people, we have really the government we deserve. And that is the so. But that again, like as I said, that civic duty and community and educated masses, transparency, and people taking charge of their society, those will be the solutions. But again, like the society we have, it is so complex, large. We have to be patient and be prepared for the long haul. Like a little gradual improvement. So you can't change it really overnight. So.
Has this model, have you already tested this model empirically or no? And in case you will be planning, are you going to take a sample from across the world, across different societies and put it to your...
Yeah, now what I am actually, my next project is because I see that US healthcare system, this dynamic is so powerful, and like most people in US, they are not understanding a healthcare system, what is at the root problem. So this concept, I believe, it can clarify a lot of people, like, oh, this is what is going on. And once people know what is going on, then people will do things. But right now, like their US common people don't even know there is a problem and what that problem is. So okay.
Thanks.